Hello, I'm Simon. And I'm Simon. And in this video, I'm going to explain some of the different options for stereo microphone arrays and which one to choose. In order to make a good stereo recording, there are a few basic things you need to know. If done incorrectly, your recording could end up with all sorts of balance and phasing issues. This could be a problem, especially when played back through a mono speaker system. So it's really important that you choose the right array and get the microphone set up properly from the start. The word stereo is short for stereophonic, which means solid or three-dimensional sound. But for the purpose of this video, I'll be talking about conventional stereo, which is basically just limited to the left and right. In order to make a stereo recording, we need 2 microphones, 2 channels, 2 speakers, and 2 ears. Our ears can easily tell if a sound is coming from the left or the right due to slight differences in either the timing or the intensity of the signal. For example, if a sound is coming from my right, the sound will reach my right ear slightly before it reaches my left ear. This is a difference in timing. But the sound will also be slightly louder in my right ear because my right ear is closer to the source. It's also to do with the fact that the sound wave needs to bend around my head to get to my left ear. And these factors create a difference in intensity of the sound wave. Intensity differences are really only relevant for frequencies above around 700 Hz due to the wavelength being shorter. But for anything below that, our ears are relying solely on timing differences. We can create a stereo recording by positioning our microphones in a way in which it preserves the timing and intensity differences of the signal between the 2 microphones. There are a few different stereo microphone configurations, each with their own strengths and weaknesses, but they all utilize differences in either timing or intensity in order to create the stereo image. Coincident pairs use 2 matching directional microphones with their capsules placed as close together as possible. Sound waves coming from any direction will arrive at the 2 capsules at the same time, so this configuration relies solely on differences of intensity to create the stereo image. Because of this, you are less likely to experience any phase issues when the recording is played back through a mono speaker system. One example of a coincident pair is the Blumlein Technique. This technique uses bidirectional or figure-8 microphones placed at 90 degrees to each other. Because these microphones pick the sound up from both the front and the back, they can create a full image of the space, capturing any natural reverb or ambience of the room. However, if you're recording in a space with poor acoustics, you might want to think about using a different technique. Also, performers need to be positioned within 45 degrees either side of the center to avoid phasing issues caused by sound directly entering the rear lobes of the microphones. Another example of a coincident pair is the XY technique. This technique is similar to Blumlein but uses cardioid microphones instead of the figure-8s. These microphones should be positioned anywhere between 60 and 135 degrees to each other. A larger angle provides a wider stereo image and would be used for recording a larger group. Because of the cardioid polar pattern, the microphones will pick up less ambience and reverb than the Blumlein pair. This is the technique that we use at GRN because it creates a good stereo image which won't cause any issues when listened back to on a mono playback system. Another type of configuration is the near coincident pair. This is similar to the coincident pair, only the microphones are spaced apart slightly, so it utilises both differences in timing and intensity to create the stereo image. Near coincident pairs create a more open and spacious sound, but they're also more likely to create phase problems when played back on a mono speaker system. One example of this is the ORTF technique. This technique utilises two cardioid microphones placed at 110 degrees to each other. The microphone capsules should be positioned 17 centimeters apart, facing away from each other. Another example of this is the NOS technique. This is very similar to the ORTF setup, except the cardioid microphones are positioned at 90 degrees to each other, with the capsules 30 centimeters apart. However, when played back through a mono speaker, phase issues will be more noticeable with the NOS technique than the ORTF technique because of the increased spacing between the microphones. A spaced pair is usually made up of two omnidirectional microphones panned left and right. These can be placed several meters apart to capture large choirs or music groups. Sometimes a third microphone can be used in the center to reinforce the center image. When recording in noisier spaces, directional microphones can be used instead of omnis to reduce the background noise. Some of the downsides of this technique include potential phase issues when the stereo image is collapsed to mono, and comb filtering. And it also fails to represent the stereo image as faithfully as some of the other techniques. So how do they sound? Well, here's a recording I made of the different techniques for comparison, so you have a listen and tell me which one you think sounds the best. Well, that's all for this video, so thanks for watching. Don't forget to try out these techniques for yourself. Bye.